The night I came home from burying my wife, my son told me grief did not make me the center of everyone's schedule. My daughter sent a thumbs-up emoji when I said I would find my own way home. 40 minutes later, I was crawling through the broken window of a burning airport shuttle while a little boy screamed for his mother. By dinner, 6 people were alive who might not have been. By 9 that evening, my children were on Facebook calling me the heart of our family. At midnight, they had scheduled a television interview in my living room without asking me. They still did not know where I was. They still had not asked where I had put their mother's ashes, but they were already deciding who would stand beside me when the cameras arrived. That was the moment I stopped confusing being useful with being loved. My name is Henry Lawson. I was 70 years old when my wife, Carol, died after 45 years of marriage. Before retirement, I worked as a fire protection engineer for the city of Denver. I spent almost 4 decades inspecting schools, hospitals, apartment complexes, office towers, and public buildings. My job was to identify dangerous conditions before they became disasters. I could look at a hallway and tell whether smoke would trap people inside it. I could inspect a stairwell and know whether hundreds of lives depended on a door that some careless contractor had installed backward. I could spot a cracked foundation hidden beneath fresh paint. What I could not see, or perhaps refused to see, was that the foundation of my own family had been shifting for years. Carol saw it. She always did. She had a way of noticing the things I explained away. She noticed when our son, Evan, called only after one of his real estate deals collapsed or his rental property needed repairs. She noticed when our daughter, Paige, invited us to dinner and then casually announced that she needed us to watch her children for the entire weekend. She noticed when Evan's wife, Brooke, photographed me standing over the grill at every holiday but never took a picture after the guests left, and I spent 2 hours washing dishes alone. She noticed that our grandchildren expected me at every game, concert, fundraiser, birthday, graduation, and emergency, yet none of them knew when I had my shoulder surgery, or how many nights I sat alone in a hospital waiting room while Carol underwent chemotherapy. They love you, Carol once told me, but they have become more familiar with your usefulness than with your heart. I laughed because that was what I did whenever she said something that made me uncomfortable. They have busy lives, I replied. So did we when they were young. We still showed up. That is what parents do. Carol looked at me for a long time. Parents teach their children how to treat them, Henry. Every time you say yes after they disrespect your time, you teach them that your needs are optional. I kissed her forehead and told her she worried too much. It was easier than admitting she might be right. Evan was 43. He sold high-end homes in the Denver suburbs and carried 2 phones because he liked people to believe one life could not contain all his responsibilities. He was handsome, confident, and persuasive. When he walked into a room, he remembered names, complimented jackets, asked about children, and made every person feel important until the moment he no longer needed them. His wife, Brooke, managed social media campaigns for restaurants, fitness studios, and small lifestyle brands. She viewed life through camera angles, captions, and engagement numbers. Their daughter, Madison, was 25 and engaged to a financial consultant named Cole. Their son, Tyler, was 17 and played competitive baseball. Paige was 40. She worked as an administrator at a private elementary school in Boulder. She had divorced when her daughters were young and later married Aaron, who owned a landscaping company. Paige was responsible, organized, and permanently overwhelmed. Whenever she hurt someone, she did not deny it. She explained why she had been too stressed to behave differently. Her daughters, Ruby and Claire, were 13 and 11. I loved all of them. That was what made everything difficult. Cruel families are easy to identify when they are cruel every day. Mine was affectionate when the circumstances were convenient. They hugged me. They sent birthday cards. They said, "Love you, Dad," at the end of calls. They also treated my availability as a natural resource that could never run out. Carol and I lived in a brick ranch house in Lakewood, Colorado. We bought it when Evan was 6 and Paige was 3. It had a wide backyard, a finished basement, and a kitchen that Carol complained was too small every Thanksgiving even though she refused to move. Behind the garage was my workshop, where I repaired furniture, built cabinets, and escaped whenever family conversations became too loud. We also owned a cedar cabin near Grand Lake. Carol's father had built the original structure in 1981. Over the years, I replaced the roof, added a screened porch, rebuilt the dock, and turned the unfinished loft into a sleeping area for the grandchildren. The cabin was not a luxury resort. It had old floors, mismatched furniture, and a stone fireplace that smoked whenever the wind came from the west. To us, it was priceless. Evan learned to fish there. Paige spent summers reading on the dock. Our grandchildren roasted marshmallows, carved their initials into a fallen log, and woke before sunrise to search for elk near the water. Somewhere along the way, however, family memories became family ownership in everyone's minds. Evan began using the cabin for client weekends without asking. Paige held birthday parties there and left laundry for Carol to wash. Brooke used the porch for product photography and referred to the place online as our family lake retreat. Madison decided she wanted to be married beside the water before she and Cole had even announced their engagement. At Sunday dinner, she opened a wedding planning app on her phone and turned it toward me. "Grandpa, imagine white chairs facing the lake, string lights across the trees, and a clear tent over the lawn." "That sounds expensive," I said. She laughed. "Not if the venue is free." Everyone at the table laughed with her. Carol did not. "The cabin is not a wedding venue," she said. "It can be," Brooke replied. "The pictures would be unbelievable." "There is one bathroom downstairs," I said. "We would rent luxury restroom trailers," Madison answered immediately. "And the catering team would work from a mobile kitchen. Mom already found one." I looked at Brooke. "You have already contacted vendors." "Only for estimates." "Without asking us?" "We knew you would want Madison to have her dream wedding." That sentence became the family's favorite weapon. We knew you would want to help. We knew you would not mind. We knew family mattered more than money. We knew Mom would say yes. We knew Grandpa could fix it. Generosity stopped being something I offered and became something they scheduled. Carol's cancer returned while Madison was planning the wedding. She had first been diagnosed 3 years earlier. Surgery and chemotherapy gave us 18 good months. We traveled to Santa Fe, spent a week on the Oregon coast, repainted the kitchen, planted new roses, and pretended the disease had become part of our past. Then a routine scan showed that it had spread. A specialist in Phoenix offered a treatment that might slow it down. Carol's younger sister, Diane, lived nearby and insisted that we stay with her. For months, our lives became airports, hospital corridors, medication schedules, insurance calls, and the cautious language doctors use when they know hope is becoming expensive. I traveled between Denver and Phoenix because I still had the house, bills, and repairs to manage. Evan promised to watch the property. Paige promised to bring meals when I returned. Those promises lasted 2 weeks. Soon, Evan was too busy. Paige's daughters had activities. Brooke said hospitals made Tyler anxious. Madison asked whether Carol's treatment dates would interfere with wedding dress appointments. "She did not mean it badly," Carol told me after Madison called. "She is young. She is 25. Young people think death is rude enough to respect calendars." Carol smiled when she said it, but I saw the hurt in her eyes. One evening, as I sat beside her hospital bed, Brooke sent a group message containing photographs of floral arches positioned around the cabin dock. "Which one feels more elegant?" she asked. Carol stared at the screen. "Did they go to the cabin?" "Evan has the code." "I know he has the code." I asked whether we gave permission. "They were probably just measuring. Henry." Her voice was weak but firm. "That cabin is the last place where I still feel like myself. I don't want them turning it into a project before I'm gone. You're not going anywhere. Do not insult both of us." I lowered my eyes. Carol reached for my hand. "I need you to promise me something." Anything. Stop saying anything when you mean anything that does not upset the children. Carol, promise me that after I am gone, you will not let them consume you because you are afraid of being alone. I don't want to discuss after. I do. Her fingers tightened weakly around mine. You have spent your life protecting everyone from consequences. Sometimes consequences are the only thing that teaches people where love ends and entitlement begins. They are our children. Yes, that is why we should have taught them sooner. I promised only that I would think about it. Even then, I was bargaining. Carol died on a Monday morning in early November. Rain tapped against Diane's windows. I was sitting beside the hospital bed reading aloud from a mystery novel she had chosen, though she had not opened her eyes in hours. At 6:14, her breathing changed. At 6:19, it stopped. The nurse placed a hand on my shoulder and spoke gently, but I could not understand the words. I adjusted Carol's blanket because her feet were uncovered. She had hated cold feet for 45 years. Then I sat beside her body until the morning light filled the room and Diane began crying behind me. Evan and Paige flew to Phoenix for the memorial. They arrived the evening before and stayed at a hotel because Brooke said Diane's guest room would be too cramped. Evan took 3 business calls during the visitation. Paige spent most of the evening resolving a scheduling problem at her school. They both cried honestly when they saw their mother. Grief and selfishness can exist in the same person. That truth is difficult because it prevents us from sorting people neatly into good and bad. At the memorial, Evan delivered a beautiful speech about Carol's unconditional devotion to family. Paige said her mother had taught her that showing up was the purest form of love. Brooke recorded both speeches and posted clips before we reached the cemetery. Her caption read, "Honoring the woman who built our family on love, sacrifice, and togetherness." Hundreds of people responded with heart emojis. After the service, Brooke asked me to move away from the flowers because she wanted a photograph of Evan, Paige, and the grandchildren. "Just immediate family," she said. I stared at her. "I'm her husband." Brooke's face changed. "Of course. I meant the children and grandchildren first. Then we'll take one with you." I stepped aside because arguing beside Carol's memorial table felt wrong. They took 12 photographs. By the time Brooke remembered me, several grandchildren had gone to the parking lot. The picture she eventually posted showed me standing at the edge beside a folding chair, half my body hidden behind Evan. That evening, everyone gathered at Diane's house. Friends brought casseroles, bread, salad, and pie. People told stories about Carol sneaking candy into movie theaters and refusing to follow recipes. I sat at the end of the dining table while my children discussed flights home. Evan needed to be back for a property closing. Paige said she had already missed too many days. Madison had an appointment with a wedding photographer. Neither asked whether I wanted someone to remain with me. Neither asked how I would carry their mother's ashes through the airport. Evan hugged me at the front door. "Text when you land, Dad. Could one of you pick me up?" I asked. The question came out before I could stop it. Evan glanced at Paige. "What time?" 4:30. "That's right in the middle of traffic." Paige frowned at her phone. "I have Ruby's parent-teacher conference at 5:30. Aaron can take her. He has a crew in Castle Rock." "It's all right," I said immediately. "I'll figure it out." Relief crossed both of their faces so quickly that I wished I had not seen it. "We'll talk in the group chat," Evan said. No one did. The following afternoon, I boarded a flight to Denver carrying one suitcase, Carol's blue wool coat, and a small walnut box containing her ashes. I kept the box beneath the seat in front of me. Putting her in the overhead compartment felt unbearable. During the flight, a man across the aisle complained affectionately because his wife had packed too many snacks. She handed him a sandwich and told him he would thank her later. Their ordinary conversation hurt more than the funeral. I had spent 45 years with someone who knew when I was hungry before I did. Now every small tenderness between strangers felt like evidence from a life I had lost. The plane landed shortly after 4:30. I stayed seated until most passengers had left. Carol had always hurried toward baggage claim, The luggage carousel rewards confidence, she used to say. Without her, there was no reason to move quickly. I opened the family group chat. I landed, I wrote. Is anyone able to pick me up? I have your mother with me. The message showed as read by Brooke first. Evan replied 3 minutes later. I'm meeting clients in Cherry Creek. Take the hotel shuttle or an Uber, Dad. Paige responded. I told you tonight was difficult. You should have planned transportation before flying. I stared at the words. Planned transportation. As though I had returned from a vacation I booked carelessly. As though burying the woman who raised them should have fit more conveniently around their evening. Brooke added, Grief doesn't make you the center of everyone's schedule. Please don't guilt the kids. The kids were 43 and 40. I typed several responses and deleted them. I wanted to remind Evan that I had driven through a blizzard to retrieve him from college after he broke his ankle. I wanted to remind Paige that Carol and I had canceled an anniversary trip when her first marriage collapsed. I wanted to say that I had their mother's ashes resting on my lap and did not trust myself to sit beside a cheerful stranger for 40 minutes. Instead, I wrote, I'll manage. Paige reacted with a thumbs up emoji. That tiny symbol was the last thing I saw before slipping my phone into my pocket. I collected my suitcase and walked toward ground transportation. Snow had started falling lightly, melting as soon as it touched the pavement. Cars crowded the pickup lanes. Families hugged. Children ran toward grandparents. Drivers held signs above their heads. I stood beside a bench with Carol's ashes tucked against my chest. The airport hotel shuttle app showed a delay. A mechanical problem had reduced the number of vehicles running. An older woman nearby struggled with 2 suitcases. I helped lift one into her son's SUV. Thank you, she said. I hope someone is taking care of you too. I smiled because explaining the truth would have embarrassed both of us. I'm all right. 10 minutes later, a large hotel shuttle pulled into the lane. A family with 2 children boarded first. The younger boy wore a bright red ski jacket and carried a plastic dinosaur. His sister dragged a stuffed horse by one leg. A tired-looking mother apologized to the driver because the children were arguing. I watched them and remembered Evan and Paige fighting over the window seat on family trips. The shuttle pulled away from the curb. Then a black pickup truck entered the service lane too fast. It struck a luggage vehicle, swerved, and crashed into the side of the shuttle. The sound was enormous. Metal folded. Glass exploded. The shuttle rolled onto its side and slid across the wet pavement before striking a concrete barrier. A second car crashed behind it. Smoke rose from beneath the shuttle almost immediately. For 1 second, everyone froze. Then people screamed and began backing away. Someone shouted that fuel was leaking. Several travelers raised their phones. I heard the boy in the red jacket screaming from inside. My suitcase fell from my hand. A young airport employee grabbed my arm. Sir, stay back. Call emergency services. They're coming. There are children inside. It could explode. Then they cannot wait. I ran toward the shuttle. At 70, I did not move like the man I had once been. My right knee had arthritis. My shoulders still ached from surgery. But 4 decades of fire safety training overruled age, grief, and fear. Smoke kills before flames reach most victims. A person trapped inside a vehicle can lose consciousness in minutes. The shuttle door was crushed beneath the vehicle. The windshield was cracked, but had not fallen. I climbed onto the exposed side panel and used a metal parking marker to strike the rear window. The first blow bounced. The second left a white star in the glass. On the 4th swing, the window shattered inward. Smoke poured through the opening. Move away from the glass, I shouted. A woman answered from inside. My children. Send them toward my voice. The older girl appeared first, coughing and holding the stuffed horse. I cleared broken glass with my coat sleeve, reached inside, and pulled her through. 2 baggage handlers finally ran forward. I handed the child down. Take her away from the smoke. The boy crawled toward me next. His red jacket was black with soot. My mom won't wake up. I'm going to get her. Promise? I looked into his terrified face. I promise I will try. I passed him to the baggage handler and climbed inside. The shuttle had become a tilted tunnel filled with luggage, smoke, broken plastic, and people crying for help. The mother lay against what had once been the side wall. Blood ran from her forehead. I felt for a pulse. It was weak, but present. A man behind me shouted that flames had reached the rear tire. I dragged the woman toward the window. My shoulder burned. Someone outside reached through and helped pull her free. I should have followed. Then I heard an elderly passenger calling from the front. A college-aged woman was trying to free his leg from beneath a twisted seat frame. I crawled farther inside. "Push when I lift," I told her. Together, we raised the frame enough for the man to pull his leg free. I directed both of them toward the broken window. By then, firefighters had arrived. One entered through the windshield. Another grabbed my coat. "Sir, you need to get out." "The driver. We have a team reaching him. There may be another passenger behind the front seats. We'll check. Get out now." I hesitated. The firefighter leaned close enough that I could see his eyes through the mask. "You bought them time. Let us finish." I crawled back toward the window. The moment I reached the pavement, my legs gave way. A paramedic caught me before I hit the ground. My palms were bleeding. The sleeve of my coat had melted near the wrist. Smoke filled my lungs, and every breath scraped my chest. Someone placed an oxygen mask over my face. I tried to remove it. "The mother?" I asked. "She has a pulse." "The children?" "Both safe." Only then did I allow myself to sit. I looked toward the bench where I had left Carol. The walnut box was gone. Panic struck harder than the crash. "My wife," I said, trying to stand. The box on the bench. An airport custodian approached, carrying it beneath his jacket. "I kept her dry," he said. I took the box with both bandaged hands. "Thank you." My voice broke. Cameras surrounded the scene. Travelers had recorded almost everything. One video showed me breaking the window. Another showed the children being lifted out. A third showed me climbing inside while people shouted that the shuttle might explode. A reporter approached as paramedics checked my blood pressure. "Sir, what is your name?" "Henry Lawson." "Were you a passenger?" "No." "Why were you waiting at the airport?" I looked down at Carol's box. I had just returned from my wife's funeral. The reporter lowered her microphone. Her expression changed from professional excitement to quiet shame. "I'm very sorry." "Thank you. Is someone coming for you?" I almost laughed. Apparently not. A police officer insisted on driving me to a nearby hotel because roads around the airport were closed and my breathing needed monitoring. He asked whether he should contact my children. "No, they may be worried." They were busy. He glanced at Carol's ashes but did not ask another question. The hotel room was small and plain. Beige walls, brown carpet, one framed photograph of snow-covered mountains. I placed Carol's box on the dresser and draped her blue coat over a chair. The television remote sat beside the bed. When I turned it on, my own face filled the screen. Cell phone footage showed me lifting the boy through the broken window. The headline read, "Retired Denver engineer saves 6 after returning from wife's funeral." A witness told the reporter that everyone else had stepped back while I kept returning to the shuttle. A firefighter said several passengers might not have survived without the broken rear window. They called me brave. They called me a hero. I did not feel like either. I had spent months watching Carol die while every skill I possessed proved useless. Saving strangers did not change the fact that I had failed to bring my wife home alive. I turned off the television. Then I opened Carol's travel bag and removed the lavender scarf she had worn during treatment. It still smelled faintly like her. I sat on the floor beside the bed, pressed the fabric against my face, and finally cried. I cried harder than I had at the hospital or cemetery. I cried because there would never be another message asking whether I had landed safely. I cried because my children had spoken about unconditional love at their mother's funeral and then left me carrying her ashes alone. I cried because strangers had needed me that afternoon, while the people I had spent my life serving had decided I could manage. My phone vibrated continuously across the nightstand. When I eventually looked, there were 31 missed calls. Evan had called 14 times. Paige had called 9. Brooke, Aaron, Madison, neighbors, former coworkers, and unknown numbers filled the rest. The family group chat had transformed. Evan wrote, "Dad, where are you? Call immediately." Paige wrote, "We saw the news. Why didn't you tell us there was an accident?" Brooke wrote, "Reporters are contacting us. We need to know your condition before we respond." Madison wrote, "Grandpa, please answer. Everyone is terrified." Nobody asked whether Carol's ashes were safe. Brooke's message bothered me most. We need to know before we respond. Even in panic, her mind had gone to public presentation. I placed the phone face down. I was not trying to punish them. I simply had no energy to comfort the people who had abandoned me. Across Denver, my family learned about me from television. Evan was meeting clients at a restaurant when his phone started ringing. The bar television showed smoke rising from the shuttle. At first, he watched with casual concern. Then the footage zoomed in on a gray-haired man climbing through a broken window. One of his clients leaned closer. "Isn't that your father?" Evan stared at the screen. The news anchor said I had just returned from Phoenix after burying my wife. The client looked at him. He was alone. Evan left without finishing the meal. Paige was helping Ruby prepare for a school presentation when another parent sent her the video. Her daughters watched over her shoulder as I disappeared into the shuttle. Claire began crying. Grandpa could have died. Ruby asked, "Who was picking him up?" Paige closed the video. "He was taking a shuttle." "Why?" "Because everybody was busy." "Everybody?" Ruby repeated. Paige had no answer. Brooke reacted by opening social media. Within 20 minutes, she posted a photograph of me teaching Tyler how to fish at the cabin. "Our beloved father and grandfather has always run toward anyone who needs him," she wrote. "Tonight, he showed the world the courage our family has been blessed to witness every day. Please pray for our hero." She tagged local news stations and added a photograph of Carol beneath it. The post spread quickly. Thousands of strangers responded. Many called us an inspiring family. Brooke replied with heart emojis. Evan called from his car. "Take it down." "Why?" "Because we don't know where he is." "That is why we need people sharing it." "You made it sound like we were with him." "I never said that." "You told him to take a shuttle." "We all made a mistake." "Then stop turning it into content." "I am controlling the narrative before someone posts the group chat." "Who would post it?" Madison sent screenshots to Cole because she was upset. "I don't know who else has them." Brooke did not remove the post. By midnight, it had nearly 20,000 reactions. She began answering interview requests. Paige posted an old Thanksgiving photograph showing Carol seated at the head of the table and me standing behind her with a carving knife. "The two strongest people I know," she wrote. "Dad, please come home." The photograph looked warm. No one could see that Carol had been sick that year and I had cooked nearly everything. No one could see that Evan arrived late without the side dish he promised. No one could see Paige leaving before cleanup because Claire was tired. Family pictures capture smiles. They rarely show who paid, cooked, repaired, forgave, or stayed after everyone else went home. I woke before sunrise in the hotel. For several peaceful seconds, I forgot where I was. I reached toward Carol's side of the bed and touched cold sheets. Reality returned all at once. I sat beside the window watching airplanes rise through the gray sky. My phone showed 82 missed calls. Messages arrived from reporters, neighbors, city officials, former employees, and people I had not spoken to in years. Evan wrote, "Dad, I am sorry. I should have come." Paige wrote, "Please don't shut us out. We lost Mom too." Brooke sent a link to her post. "People are showing so much love. A family interview could help everyone understand what kind of man you are." At 6:32, Another message arrived in the family chat. Brooke wrote, "Channel 7 can film at Dad's house Wednesday. We should have the whole family there and include something about Carol. This could also be meaningful promotion for Madison's wedding fundraiser." My hands became completely still. They had scheduled cameras inside my home. They planned to use my wife's death, the airport rescue, and my face to promote a wedding they expected me to finance. They still did not know where I was. Madison replied, "Would Grandpa be willing to talk about Grandma wanting the wedding at the cabin?" Brooke answered, "He'll agree once he understands how healing it could be." Evan wrote, "Wait until Dad answers." Paige added, "The school is getting calls. We need him to clarify that nobody abandoned him." Brooke replied, "Exactly. If he says the transportation issue was a misunderstanding, this goes away. They had forgotten I was still in the group, or they believed I would obey because I always had." I typed one sentence. "There will be no interview, no statement, and no wedding promotion in my home." The messages stopped. 3 dots appeared beneath Evan's name, vanished, then returned. "Dad, where are you?" "Safe," Paige called. I declined. Evan called next. I turned off the phone. At 8, a knock came at my hotel door. A woman stood outside holding no camera or microphone. I recognized her as the reporter who had spoken to me at the airport. "Mr. Lawson, my name is Julia West. I work for Channel 7. I said no interviews. I know. I'm not here for one. How did you find me?" The airport officer did not tell us. A hotel employee recognized your burned coat when he delivered coffee. I asked him not to alert anyone else. "Why are you here?" "The mother from the shuttle asked us to find you." My chest tightened. "Is she alive?" Julia smiled. "She had surgery during the night. She is stable. Both children are safe." I closed my eyes. Thank God. Her son keeps asking about the man who broke the window. Tell him he was very brave. He says you promised to try to save his mother. My voice nearly disappeared. I did. You kept the promise. Julia started to leave, then turned back. There are reporters outside your house. My family scheduled them. Your daughter-in-law did. Without my permission. I assumed that. Cancel it. Only your family can cancel their agreement, but I can tell my station you refuse. Please do. She hesitated. There is something else. Screenshots of your family messages are circulating online. Who released them? No one knows. The internet has already decided your children are villains. They made a selfish decision. That does not give strangers permission to destroy their lives. I agree. Can you say that? I can. But people will ask what really happened. Tell them I found transportation. Julia studied me. Mr. Lawson, protecting your children from harassment is decent. Protecting them from the discomfort of truth may be the reason they stopped seeing you. Carol might have said the same thing. I am not attacking them on television. I'm not asking you to. She handed me a card. The hospital would like you to visit when you are ready. And if you decide to speak, I will let you set the conditions. After she left, I checked out through a side entrance. The hotel manager arranged a car to take me to Grand Lake. I could not return to the house while cameras and relatives waited there. I needed a place where Carol's absence felt familiar rather than exposed. Snow covered the highway shoulders as we climbed toward the mountains. At the cabin, I discovered wedding sample decorations stacked inside the screened porch. White fabric, battery-powered candles, artificial greenery, and wooden signs reading "Welcome to Madison" and "Coles Forever." No one had asked to store them there. Inside, furniture had been moved to create space for vendor meetings. Brooke had taped color samples to the wall beside Carol's favorite chair. A folder on the kitchen table listed cabin renovations. Remove old dock railing, widen gravel parking area, repaint downstairs bathroom, replace fireplace stone for photographs. At the top, Brooke had written, "Grandpa can handle labor. Estimated material budget $18,000. Beneath it was a note from Evan. Dad may complain initially. Remind him Mom wanted this. I sat at the table and stared at those words. Carol had spent her last months worrying that they would take the cabin before she was gone. They were already planning to alter it in her name. I carried her ashes to the screened porch and placed them beside her rocking chair. "You were right," I whispered. "I'm sorry." In Carol's travel bag, beneath medical papers and her scarf, I found an envelope with my name written across the front. I recognized her handwriting immediately. My hands shook as I opened it. "Henry," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then I was not able to come home. I know you will tell everyone you are fine because you believe your pain becomes easier if nobody has to witness it. Please do not do that. Let people who love you show up. And when people do not show up, believe what their absence tells you. Do not punish the children, but do not protect them from every consequence either. Evan and Paige are not cruel. They are careless because we made carelessness comfortable. We kept giving before they learned gratitude. We solved every emergency before they learned preparation. We called exploitation family because setting limits felt unkind. You still have time to teach them differently. The cabin belongs to you, Henry. The house belongs to you. Your time belongs to you. Your grief belongs to you. No one inherits a living person. Please, build a life that does not require you to disappear so everyone else can feel loved. I will be wherever the lake turns gold at sunset. Carol." I read the letter 3 times. Then I cried in her chair until snow covered the porch steps. Meanwhile, Evan and Paige entered my Lakewood house using the emergency key. They wanted to find medical information, clean before I returned, and remove the television crew Brooke had invited. Brooke arrived with Madison and 2 boxes of framed photographs she had planned to arrange for the interview. She wanted images presenting our family as close and supportive. Evan told her to leave. They argued in the kitchen. "You are making this worse," he said. "I am trying to stop people from attacking us." "By pretending we were there?" "We are there now. Dad doesn't even know we're in his house. It is our family home." "It is his home." Brooke stared at him. "Since when do you talk like that?" Paige opened the pantry looking for coffee. Taped inside the door was Carol's Thanksgiving menu. Her handwriting listed turkey, sage dressing, mashed potatoes, roasted carrots, cranberry relish, pecan pie, pumpkin pie, rolls, and gravy. Besides several dishes, she had written names: Henry turkey and gravy, Paige cranberry relish, Evan roasted carrots, Brooke rolls. At the bottom, she had added, "Please arrive early enough that Dad is not left doing everything." Paige began crying. "I never made the cranberry relish last year." Evan looked away. "I forgot the carrots." They searched the pantry for a recipe box and found 6 notebooks on the top shelf. Carol had kept household journals for decades. Most entries were ordinary: birthdays, repairs, recipes, weather, grandchildren's school events. Then Paige found a page from 11 years earlier. Henry sold the restored Mustang today. Evan believes he still keeps it at a storage facility. We used the money to prevent foreclosure after his first real estate partnership failed. Henry asked me not to tell him because shame would make Evan refuse help. Evan sat down. He told me he sold it because he was tired of repairs. Another entry described the year Paige's first husband left. Henry withdrew funds from our retirement account to cover Paige's mortgage and legal expenses. He jokes that we wanted to work longer anyway. He does not want her daughters to feel instability. Paige covered her mouth. They kept reading. Henry paid Tyler's baseball travel fees when Evan's commissions were low. Henry repaired Aaron's landscaping trailer without charging him. Henry postponed replacing the cabin roof to pay for Ruby's dental surgery. Henry used consulting income after retirement to help Madison with college debt. Henry drove through the night to collect Paige after her divorce mediation because she said she could not breathe. Henry missed a specialist appointment of his own because Evan needed help with a burst pipe at a rental property. Then they reached an entry written 4 months earlier. "The Phoenix treatment is more expensive than we expected. Henry canceled the fishing trip he has planned for 20 years and withdrew nearly everything left in our travel savings. He says there will be other trips. We both know there may not be. If I die, I pray the children do not mistake his silence for strength without limits. Beneath that quiet is a man who is tired, frightened, and still trying to make everyone else feel safe. Evan lowered his head onto the table. Paige cried into both hands. Brooke stood near the counter, pale but defensive. We didn't know. Evan looked at her. We didn't ask. Madison picked up another notebook. Inside was a page about her wedding. Madison wants the cabin. I love her, but Brooke and Evan are acting as though Henry has already agreed. I do not want my illness used to pressure him. If I am gone, no one should claim this was my dying wish. My wish is that Henry feels at home in the place we built. Madison stared at the words. Mom told me Grandma promised. Brooke crossed her arms. She would have wanted it eventually. She literally wrote that she didn't. She was sick and emotional. Evan stood. Stop. I was trying to give our daughter something beautiful. With Dad's money, Dad's labor, and Mom's name. Everybody assumed the cabin would stay in the family. Dad is still alive. The words silenced the room. For years, they had spoken about my property, time, and future, as if I were already an estate being divided. The following morning, I turned on my phone. The group chat contained apologies mixed with demands. Evan wrote, "We found Mom's journals. I understand more now. Please call me." Paige wrote, "I am ashamed. I love you." Brooke wrote privately, "The online harassment is affecting my clients. We need a short public statement saying nobody abandoned you." Madison wrote, "Grandpa, I didn't know Grandma felt that way, but canceling the cabin now would destroy everything. Deposits are already paid." I had not canceled anything yet. The fact that her first fear was the wedding told me how much work remained. I called Evan. He answered immediately. "Dad." His voice broke. "Where are you?" "At the cabin." "I'm coming." "No. Please. You will come when I invite you." Silence. "All right." "Did you remove the reporters from my house?" "Yes." "Did Brooke give them access?" "No. I stopped her." "Thank you." "Dad, I am sorry." "For which part?" He inhaled. "For telling you to take a shuttle, for leaving the funeral early, for not asking about Mom's ashes, for every time I called because I needed money, repairs, or help and didn't ask how you were, for letting Brooke turn this into a story about us, for treating the cabin like it was already mine. Why did you do those things? Because I thought you would always say yes. That is not the same as understanding. I know. Did you think I never became tired? I didn't think." "Exactly." Evan began crying. "In the past, I would have rescued him from that moment. I would have said it was fine. I would have turned his guilt into another burden I carried. Instead, I let the silence remain." "Thanksgiving is next Thursday," he said eventually. "I know. We can handle everything. You won't lift a finger. There will not be a Lawson family Thanksgiving at my house this year. Dad, Mom planned it. Your mother also planned for you to bring carrots." He gave a broken laugh. "I saw that. I need space. We should be together. You wanted togetherness after strangers praised me. At the airport, togetherness was inconvenient. That is fair. It is not about fairness. It is about whether I can trust anyone to see me when there is no camera." Evan whispered, "What about Madison's wedding? The cabin is no longer available." His breathing changed. "Dad, the decorations will be collected. No construction will occur. No vendors will visit without my permission. She has invitations ready." "Then she should not have printed them before receiving permission." "Brooke told her you agreed." "I did not." "Madison will be devastated." "Disappointment is not devastation. Can we find a compromise?" "Not today." Paige called next. Her apology was longer and more emotional. She described the journals. She said she had spent the night remembering every time Carol and I appeared when she needed us. I treated your strength as permission to ignore you, she said. Yes. She seemed startled that I agreed. I don't expect immediate forgiveness. Good. But please don't be alone on Thanksgiving. I have not decided what I am doing. The girls are asking about you. They can call. They're afraid you're angry with them. I'm not angry with children. Are you angry with me? Very, Paige cried. I deserve that. You deserve accountability. Anger is simply part of it. Mom would want us together. Do not use your mother to override the boundary I am setting. I didn't mean... You did. Perhaps not consciously, but you did. I'm sorry. The answer is still no. Brooke did not call until that evening. Henry, we need to discuss the damage happening online. She did not ask how I felt. What damage? 2 clients paused contracts because strangers are leaving comments. Someone posted your airport messages under Madison's engagement announcement. I did not post them. I know, but you could stop this. How? Record a short video. Say we are a loving family. There was a misunderstanding, and you chose the shuttle because it was convenient. That would be a lie. It would protect your children. You mean it would protect your business? Those things are connected. Not to me. Her voice sharpened. You are enjoying watching us be punished. No. I asked Julia West to discourage harassment. Then why won't you make the statement? Because I am done lying so the family photograph looks better. We made one mistake during a chaotic week. You told me grief did not make me the center of everyone's schedule. Silence. That was taken out of context. What context makes it kind? You were pressuring Evan and Paige. I asked for a ride home with their mother's ashes. They have responsibilities. So did I every time I showed up. Brooke sighed. This martyr act is exactly what Carol used to do. My hand tightened around the phone. Be very careful. I'm saying she gave endlessly, and then privately resented that people accepted. Carol communicated her needs. You ignored them because her generosity benefited you. Madison's wedding cannot simply disappear because you are grieving. The wedding can happen anywhere Madison and Cole can afford. That cabin is part of her childhood. It is part of mine too, and I am still using it. Families share property. Families ask permission. You are tearing everyone apart. No, I am removing free access. If that tears the family apart, access was holding it together. I ended the call. The next day, Julia contacted me again. Online speculation had become worse. People were appearing outside Evan's office and calling Paige's school. I agreed to one interview under strict conditions. No cameras at my house. No questions involving grandchildren. No reading private messages allowed. No dramatic confrontation. The interview took place in a quiet room at a Grand County fire station. Julia sat across from me. A single camera stood behind her. She began by asking about the shuttle. I credited airport employees and firefighters. She asked what made me climb inside. There were people who could not get out. You knew it might catch fire. Yes. Weren't you afraid? Of course. Why go anyway? I looked at my bandaged hands. My wife spent nearly 2 years fighting for additional time. When you watch someone you love fight for every hour, you stop assuming help can wait for a more convenient person. Julia remained quiet. I was standing there. I continued. I knew enough to break the window. That was all. You had just returned from her funeral. Yes. Were you traveling alone? Yes. Did your family know when you were landing? They did. Were they unable to meet you? I considered every possible answer. I could have destroyed their reputations with 6 honest sentences. I could have repeated Brooke's exact words. I could have listed 40 years of sacrifices. Public humiliation, however, would not heal private neglect. My children believed I could manage, I said. Could you? I did. Did you want to? My voice weakened. No. Julia waited. What did you want? I wanted my son or daughter standing at the airport. I wanted someone who knew Carol to sit beside me during the drive home. I wanted to unlock our front door without hearing the silence alone. Are you angry? Yes. Do you blame them? Blame is less useful than truth. They are not monsters. They are adults who became careless because my wife and I made carelessness comfortable. We solved every problem. We offered before they asked. We protected them from guilt. Eventually, they stopped seeing the difference between our love and our labor. People online are attacking them. I want that to stop. Harassment is not accountability. What is accountability? Allowing someone to feel the natural consequences of how they treated you without rushing to restore their comfort. Does that include canceling Thanksgiving? I looked at her. My family told you? Your daughter-in-law mentioned it publicly. Of course she had. It includes not hosting a holiday while I am grieving simply because everyone expects my house, my food, and my work. Does it include your granddaughter's wedding? My property was promised without my permission. I have withdrawn that permission. Some people may call that revenge. Revenge would mean hurting them for pleasure. A boundary means I stop volunteering to be hurt. The interview aired nationally by evening. The sentence people shared was, "They believed I could manage. I did. I simply did not want to." Thousands of viewers wrote about parents they had left waiting, widowed relatives they had assumed were strong, and quiet family members who were only contacted when something needed to be fixed. The harassment toward my children decreased, though it did not disappear. More importantly, people began discussing the difference between punishment and boundaries. Brooke called the interview manipulative. Evan said it was kinder than they deserved. Paige sent one message. "Thank you for not humiliating us. I understand why you still told the truth." Madison posted a long statement claiming her wedding had become collateral damage in an adult conflict. She shared photographs of herself with Carol at the cabin and wrote, "Grandma wanted this place filled with love." Comments were divided. Some sympathized. Others asked whether she had ever received permission from the person who owned the property. Madison deleted the post after Carol's sister Diane commented, "Your grandmother loved you deeply, but she specifically told me she did not want Henry pressured into hosting this wedding." I did not celebrate Madison's embarrassment. I remembered her as a 6-year-old girl asleep against Carol's shoulder beside the fireplace. But adulthood required her to learn that disappointment did not make her a victim. I remained at the cabin for 4 days. I removed wedding samples from the porch and stacked them in the garage. I walked beside the frozen lake. I read Carol's letter every morning. At sunset, the snow reflected gold, exactly as she had written. Grief did not become easier, but it became less crowded by other people's demands. On Sunday, I returned to Lakewood. The house was clean. Evan and Paige had removed the camera equipment Brooke arranged. Flowers covered the porch. Neighbors had left cards, meals, and fire department patches. A retired teacher from across the street placed a note beneath the door. "Carol helped me after my husband died. You do not have to answer, but my table is open." Inside, Carol's slippers remained beside her chair. Her coffee mug sat upside down near the sink. I carried her ashes to the bedroom and placed them on the dresser. For the first time, I entered the house without immediately calling someone to ask whether they needed anything. The silence hurt, but it also belonged to me. On Monday, Madison came to the house alone. She carried no camera. Her eyes were swollen. "Can I come in?" she asked. For 15 minutes, she sat at the kitchen table where Carol had helped her with homework. I read Grandma's journal entry. "Your father told me. Mom said Grandma was confused near the end. She was not." Madison lowered her head. "I know. Why did you print invitations before asking me?" "Mom said you had already agreed." "Did you ever hear me agree?" "No." "Did you ask?" "No." "Why?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because I thought you would never say no to me." "That is honest. I didn't think of it as using you. People rarely do while they are benefiting." "The cabin means everything to me." "It means everything to me too. Could we still have a smaller wedding there? No construction, no luxury trailers, maybe 40 people. Not this year. She began crying. Grandpa, deposits are gone. That is painful. You could fix it. Yes. She looked up, hopeful. But I won't. Her face collapsed again. Why? Because fixing every consequence is how we reached this point. So you're teaching me a lesson with my wedding. I am declining to surrender my home while I am grieving. The lesson is simply what you discover from that answer. Cole's parents think our family is a disaster. What does Cole think? He thinks we should postpone and save money. That sounds responsible. I wanted the wedding Grandma and I talked about. Carol talked about seeing you married. She did not promise a free venue, free renovations, or my labor. Madison wiped her cheeks. I'm sorry I posted about you. Why did you? I wanted people to tell you that you were wrong. And did they? Some did. Did it help? No. Public support cannot repair a private relationship. She nodded. Before leaving, she touched Carol's mug. Can I come back sometime when you're ready? Ask again after Thanksgiving. It was not forgiveness, but it was a door left unlocked emotionally, if not literally. The family assumed I would spend Thanksgiving alone. I almost did. Then the airport mother, whose name was Elena Ruiz, called. Julia had given her my number with permission. Elena thanked me for saving her children. Her voice shook when she described waking in the hospital and learning that a stranger had entered the shuttle after getting both children out. My son, Mateo, wants to meet you, she said. Only if you're comfortable. I would like that. We heard about your wife. Thank you. My husband died 3 years ago, she said. Thanksgiving is difficult for us too. That conversation gave me an idea Carol would have loved. I called my neighbor, the retired teacher. I called 2 former co-workers whose spouses had died. I contacted the airport custodian who protected Carol's ashes. I invited Julia, though she said she would come only without a camera. I called a local hospice center and asked whether any staff members working Thanksgiving needed a place to eat before or after their shifts. I invited Diane to fly from Phoenix. I asked everyone to bring something only if doing so made the day easier, not as a price of admission. Within 3 days, my Thanksgiving table had 19 guests. Elena brought Mateo and his sister Sophia. The custodian, Mr. Alvarez, brought his wife and a tray of tamales. Julia brought rolls from a bakery because she admitted she could not cook. My neighbor brought sweet potatoes. Diane arrived with Carol's recipe box and enough stories to fill the entire evening. I ordered 2 prepared turkeys so I would not spend the holiday trapped in the kitchen. We called it Carol's Open Table. I did not announce it online. Brooke discovered it because a neighbor mentioned cars in my driveway. On Thanksgiving morning, the house smelled like sage, coffee, and warm bread. Children drew pictures at the dining table. Mateo followed me through the kitchen asking questions about smoke detectors. Sophia placed her stuffed horse beside Carol's empty chair. At 1, we gathered for dinner. I stood near the head of the table and tried to speak. For several seconds, no words came. Diane touched my shoulder. Carol believed a home should be a place where nobody had to perform usefulness to deserve a chair. I finally said, "This year, I needed people who understood that grief is not an inconvenience. Thank you for coming without expecting me to pretend I'm fine." We had just begun passing food when 3 vehicles stopped outside. Through the window, I saw Evan's SUV, Paige's car, and Brooke's luxury crossover. My entire family stepped out. Nobody carried food except Madison, who held a grocery store pie. Brooke walked toward the porch with the confidence of someone arriving at her own event. I closed my eyes. Diane looked through the window. "Did you invite them?" "No. Do you want me beside you?" "Yes." I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. Snow drifted lightly across the yard. Evan stood closest. "Dad, please don't be angry. Why are you here?" "It's Thanksgiving. I told you there would be no family dinner." Paige looked through the window. You're hosting strangers. I'm hosting invited guests. Brooke's expression hardened. So there was room. You just wanted to exclude your actual family. You were told not to come. We assumed you would calm down. That assumption has caused many problems. Tyler and Paige's daughters stood behind the adults, uncomfortable. I softened my voice. The children are not responsible. But this is not an appropriate surprise. Evan held up his hands. We came to apologize together. No cameras, no posts. We want to help. You brought nothing. Brooke looked offended. You already had food. Exactly. Dad, Paige said, please. Mom would never turn family away on Thanksgiving. Diane stepped beside me. Do not use my sister to force your way through a door Henry closed. Paige flushed. This is private. You brought it to his porch. Brooke looked at the house again. Are those the people from the shuttle? Some of them. This is unbelievable. You replaced us with people you met during one accident. They asked whether I was all right before asking what I could do for them. We have apologized. An apology does not automatically restore access. Evan's eyes filled. We made one terrible mistake. You made one visible mistake. It revealed years of quieter ones. Then tell us what to do. I have. Give me space. Stop scheduling my house, cabin, money, grief, and forgiveness. We are trying, Paige said. You arrived after being told not to, because being together matters. It mattered when television made my absence embarrassing. That is not fair. You gave speeches about showing up at your mother's funeral and left me the same evening. Paige began crying. I know. You told me to plan better when I asked for a ride. I know. Brooke told me grief did not make me the center of your schedule. Brooke crossed her arms. I apologized for the tone. You apologized because screenshots became public. You have decided nothing we do will be enough. No, I have decided that I no longer need to make your effort feel sufficient before it actually is. Brooke looked at Evan. Are you going to let him talk to us like this? Evan stared at her. He's telling the truth. You are taking his side against your own wife. This isn't about sides. It became about sides when he canceled our daughter's wedding venue. Madison stepped forward. Mom, stop. Brooke turned. I am defending you. No, you're defending the plan. The plan was for your future. Grandma said no in writing. Your grandmother was medicated. Diane's face became cold. Carol was lucid when she wrote every word. Brooke looked away. Madison held out the pie to me. I know you didn't invite us. I brought this because Grandma always said nobody should show up empty-handed. That is true. I'm sorry I came without asking. She turned toward her parents. I told them we shouldn't. Evan looked at me. Dad, the kids shouldn't spend Thanksgiving in a parking lot because we failed. They won't. There are restaurants open. You all have homes. Please let them inside. Paige, Brooke, and I can leave. Paige stared at him. Evan, the children didn't send the messages. I considered the grandchildren. Ruby and Claire looked close to tears. Tyler stared at the ground. None had created this situation. The grandchildren may enter if they want, I said. The adults may not. Brooke laughed in disbelief. You're separating children from their parents on Thanksgiving. They are teenagers, not toddlers. You may wait nearby or take them home. This is cruel. No, cruel was leaving a widower alone at the airport and then asking him to lie on television. This is a boundary you dislike. Paige wiped her cheeks. I'm not leaving my girls. Ruby spoke quietly. Mom, I want to stay. Paige turned. Ruby, Grandpa shouldn't be alone with strangers. He isn't alone, Claire said. That's the point. Tyler looked at Evan. Can I stay too? Brooke's mouth fell open. Absolutely not. Why? Because this family needs to remain united. Tyler looked through the window at the table. We weren't united when Grandpa needed a ride. Evan closed his eyes. The words from his son hurt more than anything I could have said. Madison stepped onto the porch beside me. I'm staying if Grandpa allows it. You are choosing him over us? Brooke demanded. I'm choosing not to pretend we were invited. After everything I have done for your wedding? That wedding is postponed. Cole and I decided yesterday. Brooke became completely still. You did what? We cannot afford the plan without Grandpa. We're going to save for a year and have something smaller. You made that decision without me? Madison gave a sad laugh. Now you know how Grandpa felt. Silence settled over the porch. Evan finally spoke. Dad, I'm going home. All right. I wanted to force a conversation because waiting made me feel helpless. Helplessness is uncomfortable. Yes, I lived with it while your mother died. He began crying. I know. No, you are beginning to know. Evan nodded. Can Tyler stay? If he respects my guests and helps clean. Tyler immediately said, I will. Paige looked at her daughters. If you stay, call me when dinner ends. Ruby hugged her mother. Claire followed. Paige looked at me. I hate this. So do I. That surprised her. She had expected satisfaction. I don't want to hurt you. I continued. I want you to understand that my love no longer guarantees access after disrespect. Will you ever forgive us? I hope so. But forgiveness is not pretending trust returned overnight. Brooke was the last to leave. She stared at Madison. You are ruining your own wedding. Madison held the grocery store pie against her chest. No, Mom. I'm finally planning a wedding we actually own. Brooke walked to her car without saying goodbye. Evan paused near the steps. Happy Thanksgiving, Dad. I'm not there yet, I replied. Pain crossed his face, but he nodded. I understand. The vehicles left. I opened the door and welcomed the grandchildren and Madison inside. Nobody applauded. I was grateful. This was not revenge. My children were driving away hurt, and I still loved them. Boundaries do not remove grief. Sometimes they deepen it before they create peace. Mateo moved his chair so Tyler could sit beside him. Ruby helped Julia distribute rolls. Claire asked Diane about Carol. Madison placed her pie on the counter and quietly began washing serving utensils without being asked. During dinner, she listened while Elena described waking in the hospital and learning that I had saved her children. He kept his promise to Mateo, she said. Madison looked at me with tears in her eyes. He always keeps promises. Diane answered gently. That is why the family stopped understanding what promises cost him. Later, the grandchildren helped clean. Tyler took out trash. Ruby packed leftovers. Claire placed Carol's recipe card beside her ashes. Madison remained after the others were ready to leave. I thought Grandma's love meant the cabin belonged to all of us, she said. Memories can belong to everyone. Property still belongs to someone. Cole and I found a community garden with a small event room. That sounds nice. It is not what I imagined. Few marriages are. Will you come? When is it? Next October. Ask me again after you and Cole have built the plan yourselves. She nodded. That's fair. Do not call it fair. Call it responsible. She smiled slightly. Grandma would say that. She would say it more sharply. Before leaving, Madison hugged me. I did not pull away, but I did not pretend everything was healed. After the house became quiet, I sat beside Carol's ashes. The dining room was messy. Half-empty cups covered the table. A plastic dinosaur Mateo forgot rested beneath a chair. For the first time since Carol died, the silence did not feel entirely empty. I had not spent Thanksgiving alone. I had also not surrendered the day to people who believed an apology should function like an access code. Healing began slowly after that. Evan started calling every Sunday. During the first calls, he tried too hard. He asked whether I needed groceries, repairs, transportation, or money. I need conversation, I told him. Without a project? Without a project. He struggled. We had spent decades speaking through tasks. Eventually, He began telling me about his fears instead of only his successes. His real estate business had been unstable for months. He and Brooke argued constantly about money and online appearances. "I kept asking you for help because admitting I was failing felt impossible," he said. "Why?" "Because you always seemed capable. Capability is not a standard you were required to match." It felt like one. "That feeling did not entitle you to use me." "I know." He began counseling. He sold one of his rental properties rather than asking me to cover another emergency. He brought Tyler to the house on Saturdays, not because something needed fixing, but because Tyler wanted to learn woodworking. The first birdhouse they built leaned badly. I kept it on the porch. Paige changed more quietly. Every Thursday, she called without requesting anything. At first, our conversations lasted 5 minutes, then 15, then an hour. She admitted that anger toward Carol had influenced her behavior after the funeral. "Mom stayed in Phoenix," she said. "I know it was treatment, but some part of me felt she chose Diane over us. Your mother chose the chance to remain alive. I know that intellectually. Feelings are not always intelligent. I should have told her. Yes, now I can't. That is a consequence you will have to carry without turning it into someone else's responsibility." She cried, but she did not accuse me of being cold. Months later, Paige apologized to her daughters for teaching them that Grandpa would always adjust. She began hosting dinners at her own house. The first time she invited me, she cooked too much, burned the rolls, and refused to let me wash a single plate. "Sit down," she said. "I'm practicing." Brooke never gave me the apology I wanted. She sent a carefully worded message acknowledging that her comment at the airport had been insensitive during a stressful period. She blamed public pressure for the interview plans and said her intention had been to protect the family. I replied, "Intent does not erase impact." She did not answer. Her marriage to Evan became strained when he stopped defending everything she did. They remained together, but Brooke was no longer given the cabin code or permission to post photographs of me without asking. She disliked those boundaries. That did not make them wrong. Madison and Cole postponed their wedding for 11 months. They married in a community garden outside Fort Collins with 60 guests. They paid for most of it themselves. The chairs did not match. Wind knocked over 2 flower arrangements. The reception room had fluorescent lights that Brooke hated. It was also warm, sincere, and completely theirs. Madison invited me without mentioning the cabin. She asked whether I would carry a small photograph of Carol during the ceremony. "Only if you want to," she said. Not because Grandma would demand it. I attended. I danced once with Madison. During her toast, she said, "My grandfather taught me that love is not proven by how much someone gives you. It is proven by how carefully you treat what they choose to give." Brooke looked down at her plate. I did not feel victorious. I simply felt that something had been learned. I kept the cabin. I replaced the lock and gave the new code only to Diane and an old friend who checked pipes during winter. I did not sell it, transfer it, or turn it into a family trust. I used it. That first summer, I spent 3 weeks there alone. I repaired the porch screen, repainted the kitchen, and restored Carol's rocking chair. Sometimes Evan visited after asking. Sometimes Paige brought the girls for one night and arrived with groceries, sheets, and a plan to clean before leaving. Nobody called it our cabin anymore. They called it Grandpa's place. Respect often appears in language before it becomes habit. Carol's open table became an annual Thanksgiving tradition. Some years my children attended after receiving invitations. Other years the table included firefighters, hospice workers, widows, single parents, airport employees, and neighbors whose families lived far away. Everyone contributed something when able. Nobody was photographed without permission. Nobody was praised for showing up while another person did all the labor. Carol's empty chair remained near the window, not as a performance of grief, but as a reminder that love leaves responsibilities behind. A year after the accident, the family from the shuttle visited the cabin. Mateo was fascinated by smoke alarms and emergency ladders. Sophia still carried the stuffed horse, though it had been washed so often that one ear had faded. Elena stood with me on the dock while the children skipped stones. "Do your children understand now?" she asked. "Some days. Have you forgiven them?" "Some days," she smiled. "That sounds honest. Forgiveness is not a door you walk through once. Sometimes it is a decision you make again every time the memory returns. Do you trust them? More than before, less than they would like. Is that enough?" I watched sunlight turn the lake gold. For now. The airport rescue changed how strangers saw me, but boundaries changed how I saw myself. For most of my life, I believed my value came from solving problems quietly. I thought love meant being the person who never made anyone worry, never asked twice, never required repayment, and never allowed disappointment to become visible. Carol had understood the danger. When one person is always strong, everyone else eventually forgets that strength requires rest. When one person always gives, gratitude can quietly mutate into expectation. When someone never says no, people stop hearing yes as a gift. On the second anniversary of Carol's death, Evan and Paige joined me at the lake. We carried her ashes to the dock at sunset. Diane stood beside us. Madison, Tyler, Ruby, and Claire waited near the shore. Carol had asked to remain wherever the lake turned gold. I opened the walnut box, and the wind carried her across the water. Evan cried openly. Paige held my hand. Nobody took a photograph. Afterward, we sat around the fireplace. Evan said, "I still hear my own message sometimes. Take the shuttle, Dad." Paige whispered, "I still see the thumbs up I sent." "You cannot erase those things," I said. "We know. You can decide whether they were the worst things you ever did, or the moment you finally changed." "Did we change?" Paige asked. I looked at the fire. "You are changing." That was the truth. Not every family deserves reconciliation. Some relationships remain dangerous, no matter how clearly boundaries are stated. My children, however, eventually accepted that loving me required more than claiming me publicly. They learned to ask instead of assume. They learned that my house was not an event venue. My money was not a backup plan. My cabin was not an inheritance waiting for my death. And my silence was not proof that I felt nothing. Most importantly, I learned those things too. The night I returned from my wife's funeral, I believed the most painful truth was that nobody came to pick me up. I later understood that the deeper pain came from knowing I had trained everyone to believe I would accept being left. The accident did not make me worthy. Television did not make my time valuable. Strangers calling me a hero did not create my dignity. It had always been there. I simply had to stop handing it away in exchange for temporary peace. Sometimes people say the best revenge is success. I disagree. Success can still leave you performing for those who hurt you. The strongest response to neglect is not public humiliation, financial destruction, or making your family suffer the way you suffered. It is allowing them to face the life they create when your labor is no longer silently holding it together. It is saying no without writing a 10-page explanation. It is closing a door without hating the people outside it. It is understanding that self-worth does not require anyone else to agree with your boundaries. I still miss Carol every morning. I still occasionally reach toward her side of the bed. I still hear her voice when the cabin fireplace smokes or someone arrives at Thanksgiving without enough food. But I no longer respond to loneliness by making myself endlessly available. I choose who receives my time. I invite people instead of allowing them to assume. I help because I want to, not because guilt tells me love will disappear if I refuse. And whenever the lake turns gold, I sit in Carol's restored rocking chair and remember her final lesson. People who truly love you may be disappointed by your boundaries, but they will eventually learn to respect the person those boundaries protect. So tell me honestly, was I right to turn my adult children away on Thanksgiving after they abandoned me at the airport? Or should a father always open the door the moment his family says they are sorry?